Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. Recently we've been getting back into a bit of external GPU coverage, and the one product that caught my eye is the new Razer Core V2, as it's one of the more well-known eGPUs on the market. Razer heavily markets this product alongside their Blade Stealth laptop as the perfect solution for transforming the slim and light machine into a proper gaming system. But does it actually work as advertised, and is it the best option on the market? Let's find out. So like its predecessor, the Razer Core V2 is an empty external graphics enclosure. In other words, you'll need to purchase a graphics card separately. This is a bit different to the Aorus gaming boxes we've talked about on the channel previously, which included their own GPUs. However, the Core V2's no-install GPU approach does allow you to buy whatever GPU fits within your budget, or you could even install a spare graphics card you have lying around. The Core V2 attaches to laptops via Thunderbolt 3, just like most eGPUs, and it's not just restricted to Razer laptops. Despite the advertising on their website, the Core V2 does work with most Thunderbolt 3 equipped laptops, provided eGPU support is enabled. Those with Razer laptops can take comfort that any modern Razer laptop with Thunderbolt 3 is known to work. As this is a new version, let's go through the differences between the Razer Core V2 and its predecessor that launched a few years back. The key change is the move to a dual Thunderbolt 3 controller, which sees the PCIe slot for the graphics card attached to one controller, while the USB ports and Ethernet jack get a separate controller. Both controllers do eventually funnel down into the one Thunderbolt 3 stream and cable, but Razer claims the dual controller setup allows everything to function more reliably than they did in the past. The internals of the case have also been redesigned such that the Core V2 is now compatible with a larger range of graphics cards. Literally, the GPU area is more than a centimeter taller than in the previous Core and can now accommodate any GPU that's less than 14.5 centimeters tall, 4.3 centimeters wide, and 30 centimeters long. I'll talk a bit more about the GPU installation process in a moment. As the Core V2 is designed to fit most graphics cards on the market, the unit itself is quite large, at least in comparison to the compact Aorus gaming boxes. It's not the biggest eGPU enclosure I've seen, but it dwarfs the gaming box in both size and weight. This is an enclosure you'll want to keep on your desk, while the gaming box could easily be transported around if need be. The build quality, like the first iteration, remains outstanding and in line with the metal chassis Razer uses for their laptops. The largest section of the exterior is a single piece of machined powder-coated metal, and it's complemented well by large fins and vents along most edges. The seamless integration of these necessary cooling components gives it that premium finish you'd expect from a Razer product. As far as fans are concerned, there are a couple included along the bottom edge, drawing air from a gap along the bottom and providing cool air to the power supply and graphics card. The GPU also gets a large vent along the side, which makes the Core suitable for both blower and open air GPU coolers. Did I mention the Core V2 has RGB lighting? Well, of course, it wouldn't be a Razer product without it, and there's an RGB LED strip illuminating the graphics card on the side, along with another strip at the front for some sneaky highlights to what is otherwise a stealthy front panel. Port-wise, the Core V2 does come with Thunderbolt 3 for connecting to your laptop or other device of choice, along with a 4-port USB 3.0 hub and Gigabit Ethernet. Considering a lot of ultra-portables simply don't have the space for wired networking, it's nice to get an Ethernet port on the Core. Installing a graphics card is ridiculously easy with the new design of the Core V2 and is completely toolless. Simply flip out the handle on the back and slide out the interior section. From there, remove the port cover, slot in the GPU, attach the power cables, there's support for up to 2 8-pin cables, and screw in the GPU using the thumb screw. Then you just slide the interior back inside, flip back the handle, and it's good to go. The GPU is also very easy to remove thanks to a large lever Razer is included just under the power supply. Speaking of the PSU, the unit here is rated for 500 watts and Razer lists support for up to 375 watts of GPU power. Theoretically, you could use a monstrous power-sucking dual GPU card in here like the AMD Radeon Pro Duo, though you would be much better off with a good single GPU card instead. Of the eGPUs I've used, this is the most elegant and easy way to slot in a graphics card, and even the internal layout is great. Enough about the design and features, let's talk performance. As you can install any graphics card you like, I am going to leave gaming performance to the very end. There are a couple of other things I want to talk about first. I was most curious about the dual Thunderbolt 3 controller in the Core V2. I did have some problems hooking up USB peripherals reliably to the Aorus gaming boxes on some laptops, though I can say I've had no such issues with the Core V2, which is good news as they did switch to the dual controllers specifically to address the problem. However, the use of dual controllers doesn't increase the bandwidth available to the GPU through the Thunderbolt 3 cable, whether the USB ports are utilized or not. The GPU is still limited to PCIe 3.0x4, which is a 32 gigabit per second protocol, and then further reduced by Thunderbolt 3's overhead and limitations to around 20 to 22 gigabit per second. In my testing, there was no real-world difference in GPU bandwidth or performance between the dual controller Core V2 and what I believe is the single controller Aorus gaming box, even while performing a file copy from an SSD attached to the eGPU. The situation with both boxes is the GPU bandwidth is reduced if you use any of the USB ports or Ethernet functionality. What the dual controllers appear to solve is bandwidth allocation on the eGPU itself, ensuring enough room is given for USB devices and so forth before the data is sent through the Thunderbolt 3 cable. Crucially, it appears these decisions occur at lower latency, such that peripheral support is much better. And that's really the advantage to the design there. As for thermals and noise levels, this is almost entirely determined by the GPU you choose to use. The additional fans in the Core V2 are going to be quieter than the GPU fan while gaming in almost every case, and of course the GPU is also the main source of heat. At idle, the Razer Core V2 isn't super quiet with the silent GPU installed. The Aorus gaming box is quieter, but it's not going to burn your ears out either. And you could just unplug it while you're not using it, which does shut off the unit entirely. So I've left gaming performance to the end because this is entirely determined by the graphics card you choose to use with the Core V2. Here I've tested with an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060 6GB as it's one of the most popular GPUs on the market and will likely be a popular choice for those buying a Razer Core V2. As there's no inherent performance difference among eGPUs, if you're interested in GTX 1080 performance, check our coverage of the Aorus GTX 1080 gaming box. I did hook up the Core V2 to the Razer Blade Stealth with the Core i7-8550U inside, which I also use for testing the Aorus gaming box. I'll be going into more detail on the i7-8550U plus GTX 1060 eGPU combo in a separate video, but the basic gist is the combo is well suited to 1080p gaming, though not always at the maximum detail levels. Stuttering is an issue in some games due to the Thunderbolt 3 bandwidth limitations, but most games run well provided you choose the settings to suit the hardware. This combo does clock in 20% slower than a true GTX 1060 gaming laptop on average due to a range of bottlenecks, though oddly, you can eke out more performance by slotting in a faster GPU. Something like the GTX 1080 is going to be 33% faster than the GTX 1060 eGPU combo we tested with. This is a strange result and does suggest latency is the main cause of slowdowns with eGPUs, but we'll have to do some more benchmarking to understand the bottlenecks in a bit more detail. In general though, if you have an ultra-portable laptop without a gaming-capable GPU, something like the Razer Core V2 will significantly improve the gaming performance and actually make games playable in almost all cases. Even if you don't get the full performance of the GPU you choose to put in the core, the performance you will get is worlds better than having no GPU at all. So for most of this video, I've been pretty positive about the Core V2. It's a well-made box, it works as advertised, and in the case of USB peripherals, even better than other GPUs, and it supports a wide range of GPUs. But the absolute killer, and the reason I simply can't recommend the eGPU enclosure here, is the price tag. Razer is charging $500 for this enclosure without a GPU installed, which is quite frankly ludicrous. Assume graphics cards are available at their MSRP, which does seem crazy right now, but bear with me. A Razer Core V2 with a GTX 1060 would cost you $750. Gigabyte's Aorus GTX 1080 gaming box has an MSRP of $700 and includes a GTX 1080. Both eGPUs work with Razer laptops, yet the Aorus offering provides 33% more performance for $50 less. Or of course, you could get the GTX 1070 gaming box, which retails for $600, just $100 more than the Razer Core V2, yet it includes a full GTX 1070. Of course, right now the Aorus gaming boxes are a bit hard to find with the GPU shortage in full swing, but even then you can get other Thunderbolt 3 GPU enclosures for roughly half the price of the Razer Core V2. This Akitio Node unit doesn't look as nice as the Core V2 from a build quality perspective, but the $230 you save could go directly to a better GPU. It just makes it so hard to recommend a product as expensive as the Core V2 when there are plenty of other alternatives that do basically the same thing for less money. And that's where I'm at with the Core V2. Were this product $250 or even just $200 cheaper, it'd be a decent purchase considering all the things it does well. But $500 is simply not a competitive price tag. If you are interested in buying an eGPU, I strongly recommend getting something more affordable. There are links to some sensible options in the description below. What else do people say at the end of these videos? Oh yeah, like and subscribe, do all that good stuff, and of course, I'll see you soon.